My sister drove her autistic daughter to taking her own life, so I went nuclear and got her convicted. Now she's calling me from prison, talking about family loyalty, and begging me to help her appeal. I abandoned my niece without even realizing it. My sister has a daughter called Daisy, and I have 3 kids of my own. We had them at around the same time, so it wasn't uncommon for Daisy to be dropped off for a play date. And I knew she didn't have any friends at school, so I encouraged it as often as I could. I treated her like she was my own. So when one day I got a call saying she wanted to stay with us for a while, I agreed, because I knew my sister, and I knew she was a little cuckoo crazy sometimes. Daisy showed up to my front door with tears streaming down her face. Her eyes were so puffy I could barely see them, and the tighter I hugged her, the more she cried. I invited her inside and grabbed her a tub of Ben & Jerry's cookie dough. I knew from experience that the more I pushed for answers, the more she would budge. So I let Daisy take her time to answer, while I gently stroked her hair. Eventually she spoke, except not with words. She rolled up the arms of her sleeves. What I saw made me sick to the stomach. Littered on her tiny self were fresh bruises. I tried to keep my face calm, because I knew I had to be strong for her. This made her cry a little less. "Honey, is it true that you came because you wanted to visit me?" Suddenly her eyes flashed with anger. I literally saw her knuckles go white with how hard she was tensed up. What the actual F? Did my effing mom tell you that? At this point, Peggy was 13, so I thought I could trust her enough to tell the truth. I asked her what really happened. Turns out her relationship with her mom went south as soon as she turned 10, because that's when she was diagnosed with high-functioning autism disorder. And instead of, being a good parent and accepting her for who she is, her mom tried to beat it out of her. Daisy told me that if her mom ever caught her stimming or trying to meditate to regulate her overstimulation, she would shout right in her ears. And recently, she bought a speakerphone to amp up the autism healing. I felt myself choke up and sniffle to hold back the tears when she said that. In front of me was a kind and sweet girl that the world had been unkind to. I didn't know what to do, but one thing was for sure. There was no way she was going back to my sister's house. I promised she could stay as long as she wanted, and handed her my phone so she could order noise-canceling headphones and a fidget cube of her choice. I could tell she appreciated it, because even through her tears, the corners of her lips moved slightly upwards. I had no idea this was the calm before the storm. At first, Daisy was just quiet, staying in the guest room most of the time. I figured she was decompressing, so I gave her space. My own kids were a little confused about why their cousin wasn't talking to them like usual, but they didn't push it. Then, small things started to happen. My youngest, Timmy, came to me one day with a red mark on his arm. "Daisy pinched me," he whispered. I tried to talk to Daisy about it, but she just stared at me with hollow eyes. I didn't do anything, so I convinced myself that it was a misunderstanding, but the incidents kept escalating. One night I heard a scream from the bedroom. I rushed in to find Daisy standing over my oldest daughter, Lily, who had a bloody nose. Daisy was breathing heavily, while Matt looked up at me with terror in his eyes. I took her to the living room and tried to stay calm. "What happened?" She just shrugged, like she didn't even register what she'd done. I was caught between wanting to protect her and needing to keep my kids safe. The guilt was eating me alive. Over the next few weeks, Daisy's behavior became more unpredictable. She would scream at the slightest noise, throw things when my kids laughed too loud, and once she pulled Timmy's hair so hard I had to pry her fingers off. I tried to be patient, I really did, but my kids were scared of their own home. One evening, after another meltdown where Daisy threw my favorite vase at Lily and almost unalived her, I called my sister. I couldn't handle it anymore. I was desperate. She picked up straight away. What did she do now? When I explained everything, there was silence on the other end. Then she laughed. A sharp, cruel laugh. Of course she's acting crazy. She always has been. She gave herself those bruises. And that whole autism skit, she made it up for attention. I was stunned. Could I really have been that gullible? The doubt crept in like poison. The next morning, I sat Daisy down. "Your mom is coming."